Before we begin, just a quick note. This video doesn't use horror footage or jump scares. Instead, I've kept it simple. Just real chilling stories and soft rain sounds in the background. Because sometimes, all it takes is a voice and your own imagination to feel fear. So if you're lying in bed, trying to sleep, just close your eyes, listen, and let the stories unfold. This story was told to me by an old friend of mine, Nate, who transferred to a university in upstate New York in the fall of 2012. The kind of guy who never really believed in ghosts or superstitions. But what happened during his first semester changed everything he thought he knew about the world. Nate had gotten admission into a small but respected liberal arts college. Since he applied late, most of the campus housing was already full. The college administration eventually placed him in an older dorm building on the far end of campus. It was a 4-story brick structure, built sometime in the 1940s with creaky floorboards, dimly lit hallways, and an unsettling quiet after sundown. The dorm was called Blackwell Hall, and Nate was assigned to room 413 on the top floor. When he arrived, he noticed something weird right off the bat. His room had 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 closets, standard for a double occupancy. But there was only 1 key and no sign of a roommate. The RA, resident assistant, explained that his roommate had dropped out last minute, so Nate would have the room to himself for the time being. At first, Nate thought he hit the jackpot. Who wouldn't want a double room all to themselves? But that feeling didn't last long. The first few nights were quiet. He unpacked, set up his desk, and tried to settle into the new routine. On the 3rd night, he woke up at around 2:47 a.m. to what sounded like faint scratching near the closet. Half asleep, he dismissed it as a mouse, or maybe the old building settling. He went back to bed, but it didn't stop. Over the next few nights, the scratching got louder. Sometimes it came from the closet, other times from under the bed. Once, he even heard it from behind the wall, near the headboard. He told himself it was probably rats. Old dorms have pest problems. But one night, when he decided to actually check, he opened the closet at around 3 a.m. with a flashlight. Nothing. Not a scratch. Not a mouse. Just an old, oddly placed coat hook inside. The kind that juts out like a finger pointing downward. For some reason, that hook made him uneasy. A few days later, Nate found something even stranger. He came back to the dorm after a long night of studying and found his desk lamp switched on. He was sure he had turned it off. His laundry basket had been tipped over, and some of his clothes were scattered across the floor. But nothing was missing. No signs of a break-in, just messed with. He asked his neighbors if anyone had been in his room. Nobody had seen anything. The RA told him the master key hadn't been checked out. By the end of the 2nd week, Nate had developed a strange habit. Every night before sleeping, he would double-check that his door was locked, his closet was closed, and the lights were off. But still, he would wake up between 2:45 and 3 a.m. Always to some strange noise. A whisper, a creak, a soft thump near the bed. Then came the dreams. He started dreaming of a girl, pale, almost translucent. Long black hair that covered most of her face. She never spoke, but she would stand near the window of his dorm, looking outside. Sometimes she would turn toward him slowly, but every time she did, he would wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding. One night though, he didn't wake up right away. In the dream, the girl turned around completely, and Nate saw her face. She had no eyes, just hollow, sunken sockets, and a mouth that stretched unnaturally wide, like it had been cut at the corners. Her lips were cracked and bleeding, and when she opened her mouth, she let out a sound that Nate described as a chorus of screams layered over each other. He woke up screaming. His throat was raw. He had actually screamed in real life. When he turned on the light, everything in the room was the same, except for one thing. The closet door was wide open, even though he had checked it. Even though he remembered, clearly remembered, shutting it tight before bed. He stood there frozen, his eyes fixed on the dark, yawning mouth of the closet. The flashlight was still on his desk. He grabbed it, heart hammering, and pointed the beam inside. Nothing. Just that same old coat hook, pointing downward like an accusing finger. But this time, it wasn't in the same position. It had twisted slightly. Now it was pointing toward the ground at an angle, as if trying to indicate something beneath the floorboards. Nate backed away slowly, slammed the closet door, and pushed his desk chair up against it. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning came, he went straight to the RA and requested a room change. The RA looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept either. He rubbed his temples and said, "Let me guess." "Room 413. Nate froze. "Yeah, why?" The RA looked around before leaning in a bit. "You're not the first to ask." He wouldn't say much more, only that a few students in the past had complained about strange things in that room. Noises, shadows, sleep paralysis, nightmares. But there were no official reports, no written documentation, just rumors. Stories passed along by students who didn't last more than a few weeks in Blackwell Hall. That same afternoon, Nate visited the campus library and dug through the archives. It was mostly old newsletters and photos, but tucked into one folder labeled Housing Reports, 1998, he found a brief incident report. September 17th, 1998, Blackwell Hall, room 413. Student resident, name redacted, reported to have withdrawn from the college under mental duress. Resident experienced persistent insomnia, vivid hallucinations, and episodes of self-harm. Room temporarily vacated. Nate's stomach turned. He flipped the page. Another report, dated just a year later. Same room, another student, similar outcome. Dropped out midway through the semester. He spent the rest of the day looking for more, but the trail ran cold. The university didn't keep detailed records past a certain point, but there was one more clue. A yellowed newspaper clipping from 1974, mentioning a young woman found dead in her dorm in Blackwell Hall. The article didn't list the room number, but Nate had a sick feeling in his gut. He went back to the dorm just before sunset, packed up a duffel bag, and decided to crash at a friend's off-campus apartment for the night. But just as he was zipping up his bag, he heard it again. That scratching, slow, deliberate, like nails dragging across wood. This time from beneath the bed. He didn't want to look. Every nerve in his body told him to leave now. But something made him get down on all fours and shine the flashlight under the frame. There was nothing there, at first, but then, way at the back corner, he saw hair. Long, black, matted hair, pressed flat to the floor like something, or someone, was lying there face down. Nate fell backward, kicked away from the bed, grabbed his bag, and ran. He didn't lock the door. He didn't even close it. He just kept running down the hallway, down 4 flights of stairs, out of Blackwell Hall into the cold October air. He slept on his friend's couch that night. When he returned the next day with the RA to officially switch rooms, everything was back to normal. Closet closed, bed neat, the coat hook back in its original position. But Nate never stepped foot in room 413 again. He didn't even collect the rest of his stuff. He requested it be sent to his new dorm. A few days later, he passed by Blackwell Hall on his way to class. He glanced up at the top floor. Room 413's window was open, and standing behind the glass was the girl from his dream, motionless, watching. I still remember the exact feeling in my stomach when I stepped back into that room. It was freezing. I mean, physically cold. Not just the kind of cold you imagine when you're scared. My breath literally fogged up, and the air, it was so still, so unnaturally silent that I could hear my heartbeat like a drum in my ears. The old wooden chair that had been tucked neatly under the desk when we left, it was now placed in the center of the room, turned toward the window, but none of us had touched it. "Who moved that?" I asked, already knowing the answer. No one responded. Steve walked toward it slowly, like it might do something. He reached out his hand, hesitated, then touched it. "It's warm," he muttered, confused, like someone was just sitting here. We all exchanged glances, and that's when Megan, who'd been standing by the door, whispered, "We need to leave. Now." But Sam was already on edge. "Number, no way. We're not leaving. Not after coming this far." Sam was always like that. Stubborn, hungry for a thrill. The kind of guy who laughed during horror movies and mocked Ouija boards. He pulled out his phone and said, "Fine. Let's do what we came here to do." He set his phone on the windowsill, camera facing the chair. "Let's record. 10 minutes. Lights off. Just to see." We were hesitant, but no one said no. The lights went off. The only illumination was the faint moonlight slipping through the torn curtains, barely enough to make out the shape of the chair. We sat in a semicircle, backs against the walls. The room suddenly felt more alive, like it was breathing with us. 5 minutes passed. Silence. 6 minutes. Then we heard it. A soft, dragging sound. I swear to God it was like nails on old wood, slow, scraping along the floorboards, as if something was crawling, trying to get closer. It was coming from behind the desk, the darkest part of the room. Megan whispered, "Do you see that?" We looked toward the desk. There was movement, but it wasn't a person. It was too low to the ground, slithering, pale, like a torso with arms, no legs. It moved in jerks, like someone yanking a puppet by strings. Sam fumbled for his flashlight and turned it on. Nothing, just the desk, no creature, no thing. But the chair had turned. Now it was facing us. We didn't hear it move. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, like the air itself had thickened. Then Sam's phone vibrated violently, like a notification buzz, except it wouldn't stop. He grabbed it and looked at the screen. His face went pale. "What is it?" I asked. He turned the screen toward us, the live video feed. In the feed, the chair was still empty, but there was something standing behind it. A figure, tall, thin. Its face was completely smooth. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just skin, like a blank mannequin. And it was swaying, slowly, side to side, like it was enjoying the silence. I wanted to scream, but my voice felt trapped in my throat. Then, in the feed, it turned toward the camera, toward us, even though in the room there was nothing there. The live video showed it walking forward. 1 step, 2 steps. Now it was just inches from the phone. And then the feed went black. Just static. Sam dropped the phone. It clattered across the wooden floor, and before it even stopped moving, the chair launched backward like someone had kicked it. Hard, It slammed into the wall right beside Megan's head. We ran. No one waited. We bolted down the hallway, stumbling over debris, practically falling down the stairs. Outside, the air felt thick with moisture and decay. It had started to drizzle. We didn't look back until we got to the car. And when we did, the attic window was open. A shadow was standing there, still, watching. By 2:43 a.m., something happened that I don't know how to explain in words, not properly. I was laying there under my blanket, the storm still thrashing outside, when I heard a noise that didn't belong. It wasn't the rain, it wasn't the wind, it wasn't the creaking of old wood. It was a voice, a woman's voice, faint, raspy, and not in the house exactly. More like outside, but very close. It was calling something out over and over again in a whispering chant. Don't forget me, don't forget me, don't forget me. At first I thought I was dreaming, but then I noticed my dog, who'd been passed out on the floor at the foot of the bed, was standing upright, hackles raised, growling. Low, quiet, guttural growls. His eyes were locked on the window facing the backwoods. I reached over and turned off the fan just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. That voice kept coming through the white noise of the rain. Don't forget me. Don't forget me. I sat up. Now, understand this. This house was far from anyone else. The only neighbour lived nearly a half-mile down the main road, and there was nothing behind us but 300 yards of trees. No one should be out there. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. That's when I noticed something. The window facing the backwoods, the one with the pale yellow curtain. It was slightly ajar, just enough for the rain to come in, just enough for a voice to seep through. I knew I hadn't left it open. My uncle always used to yell at me if I did that during a storm. Storm winds can rip a loose window right off the hinges. I got out of bed, heart thudding, and walked slowly toward it. The floor creaked under my bare feet. My dog didn't follow. He just stood by the bed, growling, ears pinned back. The window squeaked louder as I touched it. I peeked outside. Pitch black. Except there was something there. Not a person, not exactly. A faint shimmer, like a silhouette made of mist, maybe 30 feet out in the yard. I held my breath. The lightning flashed behind it, and in that 1 second, I swear I saw the shape of a woman, standing barefoot in the grass, head tilted, eyes glowing white like reflectors. Then darkness again. I slammed the window shut, latched it, and pulled the curtain tight. The chanting stopped instantly, but the moment I turned around, the power cut out. Click. Total silence. No rain. No hum. Just dead silence. Even my dog whimpered and retreated under the bed. I grabbed the flashlight again, but now it barely flickered. My phone said 2:59 a.m. I didn't want to go out there. I didn't even want to leave the room. So I locked the door. Not that it would do much in a house with thin wooden walls, and I waited. Somewhere around 3:10, there was a knock. Not on the front door, not on any door exactly. It came from inside the walls, like a knock between the drywall and the studs. Hollow, intentional, slow, knock, pause, knock, pause, knock. I stared at the wall near my closet. That's where it came from. There shouldn't be anything in there. Then the voice came again. Don't forget me. This time it wasn't outside. It was in the room, behind the closet door. The flashlight cut out completely, and I swear to God, as I sat there frozen, back pressed against the bed frame, I heard the closet door slowly creak open. I never saw what came out. I shut my eyes. I didn't scream. I didn't move. And when I opened them again, it was dawn. Light filled the room. Everything was normal, except the closet door was wide open, and on the floor, where my dog had been laying, was something I still can't explain. A clump of hair, long, wet and grey, not like any human hair I'd ever seen. And next to it, etched into the floor with something sharp, were the words, "Now you remember me." The knock didn't come again. For nearly 5 minutes I stood there, breathing slow, chest tight, staring at the door as if something might just phase through it. Every instinct in me screamed to call someone, anyone, but I knew how it would look. "Hi, I'm alone in a rented house," and someone knocked twice and then vanished. Cops don't jump for that. Not in this town. Maybe not anywhere. But something about the knock didn't feel normal. It wasn't the kind of knock someone does and leaves. It was heavier, intimate, and too deliberate. I grabbed my phone anyway and checked for messages. None. Still no signal. Then, as if the house wanted to mess with me more, the back porch light flickered on by itself. I froze again. I hadn't even touched that switch, and no light had turned on back there since I got here. Slowly, I moved toward the back window near the kitchen to peek through the blinds. It was one of those narrow vertical ones. Only gave you a sliver of a view unless you moved the whole thing. I opened them just a crack. There was a figure standing by the tree line. I couldn't see much. The rain had picked up again and was making the glass blurrier than before, but the figure was there, not moving, not facing the house exactly, but just standing there in the middle of the backyard, arms by their sides, no umbrella, no hood, just standing in the pouring rain like it was nothing. I must have watched for 20 seconds straight, my eyes glued to that outline, but then I blinked, and they were gone, vanished, as if they never existed. I closed the blinds in a panic and turned off every light in the house. My heart was going nuts, and I swear to you, I started hearing faint whispers again, coming from the vents. I told myself it was the rain, the wind, my nerves, but deep down, I knew. This wasn't normal. Something wasn't right with this place. At that point, I did what anyone would do. I packed a small bag, grabbed my phone, and decided I'd sleep in the car. Lock the doors, wait for morning. I'd get out as soon as I had signal. I stepped onto the porch. The rain was relentless. The trees rustled like whispers in the dark, and the air felt thick, heavy. It smelled weird too, like burning hair and damp wood. I ran to the car, opened the door fast, jumped in, locked it, and tried to breathe. But I couldn't relax. The dashboard clock blinked 3:21 a.m. I laid back, keeping my eyes on the windshield, just watching, waiting, hoping the figure wouldn't return. 15 minutes later, just when I thought maybe I could fall asleep in the back seat, I heard it again, that knock, but this time not on the door, on the car window. I shot up instantly and saw her, a woman, standing outside the driver's side window, soaking wet, long black hair stuck to her pale face. Her mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear anything. Her eyes were wide, frozen. Her face was wrong, like she was trying to smile but couldn't get it right, like her face had forgotten how to be human. I didn't move, didn't breathe. She placed her hand flat on the glass, and then slowly, she leaned, not stepped, leaned toward the window, like her body was bending unnaturally forward, her face inches from mine. And in that moment, I swear to God, her eyes turned completely black. I couldn't even scream. I just shut my eyes tight and waited. But when I opened them again, she was gone. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. I kept every door locked and just sat there in the dark, occasionally wiping the fog off the inside of the windshield, trying to see if she came back. She didn't, not visibly, but the house behind me. I couldn't stop staring at it through the rearview mirror. It felt like it was watching me now, like I wasn't the one renting it. It had rented me, and whatever I saw that night, it wasn't finished yet. By 5:30 a.m., the rain had started to ease up. There was a faint blue tint to the sky, that dull early morning light that normally brings some peace, but it didn't bring any. My phone buzzed. I almost jumped out of my seat. Signal, finally. I texted my brother right away, just dropped a pin and wrote, "Dude, something's wrong with this place. I'm coming back now." I didn't wait for a reply. I started the engine, reversed hard out of the driveway, and peeled off down that dirt road. The tires slid a little in the mud, but I didn't stop. I didn't even breathe until I hit the main road. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. It was my brother. "What the hell are you talking about? What place? I thought you cancelled the trip." I pulled over. I read the message again. "Cancelled the trip?" I scrolled up. I had texted him 2 days ago confirming I was going to the cabin. I even sent the listing. But when I checked the conversation, there was nothing there. Just a few old messages from last month. No cabin address, no confirmation, no listing, no pin. It was like none of it ever happened. I opened my browser, tried to find the Airbnb listing again. It was gone. No trace of it in my history. The emails were missing too. The confirmation, the check-in information, even the payment receipt. I was sitting there, car idling on the shoulder of the road, and I swear I felt something shift. Not in the car, but inside me, like a pressure in my chest. Like something had attached itself to me in the night and was still there. I drove straight to my brother's place, didn't even go home first. He took one look at me and said, "Dude, you look like you've been in a car accident." I didn't tell him everything, just said there was a weird guy near the cabin, and I bailed. But I could tell he didn't fully buy it, not because he didn't believe me, but because he couldn't find the listing either, and he remembered seeing it before. He remembered us talking about it, and yet now it was like the entire place had been erased. But not from me. I had proof. One thing, just one. When I finally got home and unpacked, I opened the front pocket of my bag and found a small folded piece of paper that I hadn't put there. It was damp, smelled like mildew. I unfolded it slowly, hands shaking. There were 5 words written in faded ink. "You should have stayed inside." I stood in my kitchen holding that note, my thumb trembling against the edges of the old paper. "You should have stayed inside." My first thought was, inside the house. But no, somehow it felt more ominous than that. Like it wasn't about the house. It was about something else. Something I didn't understand yet. I tossed the note on the counter and told myself it had to be a prank. Maybe one of those twisted viral social media things where people fake haunted Airbnbs for views. But that didn't explain how the listing had vanished. Didn't explain the man I saw under the stairs. Didn't explain why I still hadn't stopped hearing things. Because that night, back in my own apartment, I woke up around 3:13 a.m. No thunder, no wind, but I heard scratching. Soft, almost gentle, coming from under my bed. I was back in the city now, my own bedroom. My door was locked. There was no way anyone could be in here, but it didn't stop. Screw, scrurk, tap, tap. I couldn't bring myself to look. I just lay there, frozen, my heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. Then the mattress shifted slightly, just a twitch, like something underneath had pressed up against it from below. I finally mustered enough courage to sit up. I flipped on the lamp beside my bed and swung my legs to the floor. Silence. No scratching, no tapping. I slowly got to my knees, leaned over, and looked underneath. Nothing. Just empty space and darkness. But when I turned the light off again and lay back down, something cold brushed against the back of my neck. It wasn't a breeze. It wasn't my pillow. It felt like fingertips. The next morning, I tore my bed apart, flipped the mattress, took out every drawer, checked every corner of the room. I didn't find anything, except a single splinter. It was long, old, and shaped, oddly, like it had broken off from a hand-carved piece of wood. A stair post, maybe, just like the one in the cabin basement. And it smelled faintly of that same earthy rot. That was the moment I realized I didn't leave that place. That place came with me. Whatever was in that house wasn't trapped there. It was looking for a way out, and I might have brought it home. For the next few days, I tried to go on like normal. I worked from home, answered emails, took meetings, even told myself I was just overtired, that it was stress, lack of sleep, maybe some sort of delayed reaction from staying alone in that creepy house. But the silence in my apartment, it started to feel wrong. The air felt thicker, the light less warm. I'd hear the fridge hum, then stop, and swear something was breathing in the pause. I kept hearing things when I showered, like the sound of bare feet on tile just outside the curtain, like someone whispering, "Get out," not screaming it, not in a movie-type way, but low, like someone exhausted and broken, warning me because they didn't make it out in time. And the dreams, God, the dreams. Every single night since I got back, I've had this dream where I wake up in a dark room. My bed is gone, my apartment gone, and I'm back in that house. Only it's not just the house anymore. It's different every time. Sometimes the furniture is gone and the floorboards are dripping. Sometimes there are photos on the walls of me sleeping. Sometimes I walk into a room and my mother is there, but she's not alive, just standing there soaking wet, mouthing words like she's underwater. And the worst part, in every dream, I always find a staircase. No matter where I go in the house, whether it's the kitchen or a bathroom, or even a hallway that shouldn't be there, there's always a staircase leading down. I know better now. I never go down. But last night, I didn't have a choice. In the dream, I was frozen in place. I couldn't move anything except my eyes, and I watched, helpless, as my body started walking on its own, step by step, toward the basement door. I was screaming inside my own head, trying to wake up, to force myself to open my eyes in the real world. But the dream didn't break. I heard the door creak open. I felt the cold air rush up the stairs, and I saw them. Faces, pale, wet, dirty, pressed between the rails of the wooden staircase, looking up at me, not with anger, not with rage, but with sorrow, like they didn't want me to come down, like they were begging me not to. I finally woke up gasping, soaked in sweat. My throat hurt, my legs were cramped, and when I turned on the lamp, there were muddy footprints at the foot of my bed. They weren't mine, and they led to the closet. But when I opened it, nothing was there. Just that smell again. Wet wood, old stairs, and something waiting. I didn't sleep after that. How could I? I sat on the couch with every light on, baseball bat in one hand, phone in the other, just refreshing random tabs, checking the time every 2 minutes. There were no more footprints, no more sounds, but that made it worse. It was like the house was waiting, and that smell, The wet wood, that cold basement scent, it never left. It followed me from room to room, faint but constant, like someone dragging a damp blanket behind me wherever I went. By morning, I'd had enough. I called Marcus. Now, you have to understand, Marcus is one of those no-nonsense, grounded, logical types. He's been my friend since college. Doesn't believe in ghosts, spirits, curses, any of that. So when I told him I thought something followed me back from that Airbnb, he laughed. Not because he thought I was lying, but because he thought I needed therapy. Bro, you've been alone too long, he said. Sleep deprived, paranoid. You brought it all back in your head, not your suitcase. But when he came over that afternoon, his expression changed the second he stepped in. What the hell is that smell? He asked. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He walked around a bit, sniffed near the vents, opened the windows, looked under the sink. Did something die in the walls? I told him to follow me. We opened the closet. It still smelled. The air inside was colder. I asked him if he saw anything unusual, and to his credit, Marcus tried to laugh it off, but I could see it in his eyes, that flicker of discomfort, that instinct humans have when something isn't right, even if they can't explain it. He closed the closet door and said, "You need to get out for a bit, man. Let's crash at my place tonight. Just reset your brain. You're spiraling." I agreed. We grabbed my essentials, laptop, charger, change of clothes. But when we were about to leave, Marcus noticed something. The mirror by the front door, it had fogged up. That was weird because the AC had been on all day and the rest of the place was bone dry. We both stared at it, and then something moved behind us. A reflection, barely visible, just a shape. It darted across the room behind us, but when we turned around, nothing was there. We stood in silence. Then Marcus said, "Let's go." We left, got in his car, pulled out of the driveway, and just as we turned onto the street, I looked up at my apartment window. The lights I'd left on were off, and something, was standing in the dark behind the glass, watching us leave. Marcus didn't sleep either. We stayed up most of that night at his place, me on the couch, him checking locks, pacing around with a bat of his own now. Neither of us said what we were thinking, but we both knew something had changed. It wasn't just some bad dream. Something had attached itself to me, and it followed. The next day, we went back to my apartment during daylight. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Lights were off. No sign of forced entry. No smell. No fogged mirror. Just silence. But the air felt wrong. We grabbed a few more of my things, packed fast. I told Marcus I wasn't staying another night there. I was going to break the lease, burn sage, do whatever it took. As we were about to leave, he stopped by the closet. "Want me to open it?" he asked. I didn't answer. He opened it anyway. And what we saw, there was a handprint on the inside of the closet door. But it wasn't from a normal hand. It was narrow, long, with fingers too thin, like someone had pressed wet branches against the wood. It was black, damp, almost sticky looking. Marcus said, "Is that mold?" I knew better. That print wasn't there the day before. I slammed the door shut, locked it with a chair, told him we were done. We left without another word. That night, I slept in his guest room. He gave me some melatonin to help. I laid down around 11. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but it was raining hard outside, thunder, wind, and then a knock on the window. Now, his guest room is on the second floor. I told myself maybe it was a tree branch or something flung up by the wind, But then there was another knock. Deliberate, slow, measured. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move. Just stared at the window, heart hammering. Then, lightning lit up the sky. And I saw her. The woman. She was on the roof, standing outside the second-story window. Her soaked hair stuck to her pale face. Her dress, still muddy, still dripping. Her eyes wide open, her mouth unmoving, just staring. I couldn't even scream. I just froze. And then she smiled. Not like someone happy to see you, but like someone who already knows how your story ends. She raised one hand and tapped the glass, and just like that, I blacked out. I don't remember what happened after. Marcus said he found me the next morning on the floor, freezing cold, eyes wide open, murmuring nonsense. He took me to the hospital. The doctors said it was a stress-induced psychotic episode. Gave me pills, therapy schedules, breathing techniques, but none of that matters, because I still see her, in mirrors, in puddles, in the corner of dark rooms. She's not in my apartment anymore. She's in me. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can feel her crawling up from the closet, through the floorboards, whispering things in a voice that sounds almost like mine. I left that place, burned every item I brought back, changed states, changed numbers, but I know she'll find me again. She's patient. She's already here. And now that you've heard this, she might come for you too. That's it for tonight. I upload new scary stories every single night, always with soft rain in the background and no jump scares. So if you're someone who likes falling asleep to horror, consider subscribing. And if you're already part of this little community, thank you for being here. Sleep well.